Hello, everybody. San here, engineer, MBA, and investor. And in today's video, I want to talk about what do investors expect from CRISPR? What do investors expect from the particular program, for example, from CRISPR Therapeutics and Vertex, Cas9? I want to talk about that because I think it's important to look at it from an investor standpoint. And I think a lot of us are obviously investors in the space. A lot of us have invested significant money either in CRISPR Therapeutics, Beam Therapeutics, Caribou, there's Editas, there's Verve, there's obviously Entila Therapeutics. There's so many companies in this space, right? I mean, not so many, but there's quite a few of them. Prime Medicine, So there's quite a lot. And basically, a lot of us are investors. And I think since December 8th, we talked a lot about the importance of, curing this rare blood disorder called sickle cell disease. We also predicted that in 2024, we will also have the FDA potentially approve beta thalassemia, which is another rare blood disorder that affects a lot of people in the US. And Cas9 has a segment that can prove to the FDA, say, hey, we have data from clinical trials all the way to phase 3 showing not only for sickle cell disease, positive data, but also for beta thalassemia. And basically here, the investors are now in a point where, okay, we got that approved, but what do we expect from this program? And I think from this learning, you can extrapolate that and apply that for other companies for the future in 2024, 2025, 2026, and going forward, right? And of course, this motivation of the video comes from this this news publisher, statnews.com, this article here that was published. I just read it actually just today, and this was back in November, but they obviously edited this out. They edited this out based on the fact that the FDA approved it. Obviously, the article had a refresh, but there's a couple of key takeaways there that I think we should talk about because it allows us, like I said, to extrapolate things in the future and put things in perspective when it comes to financials, right? And first, let's talk about the obvious thing. How much does Cas9 are gonna bring in terms of sales revenue? And Bloomberg, and I tried to find the actual Bloomberg article. You had to pay for that article to have access to it. I couldn't access it, so bear with me here, guys. Using this source as a gateway here, and it says Cas9 sales aren't expected to reach $1 billion until 2027, or more than 3 years after approval. Peak sales is in 2030, which is basically in 6 years. Beyond that, it could rise to more than $2.2 billion, according to Bloomberg. So to put that in perspective, Vertex is expected to report nearly $10 billion of sales in its drugs for cystic fibrosis this year. So just to know, this has nothing to do with CRISPR. It's just because Vertex is obviously involved with this Cas9, and Vertex has multiple of FDA-approved programs, right? You guys can Google that. They're a huge pharma company, right? So under this collaboration agreement between Vertex CRISPR Therapeutics, Vertex will record and report all sales of Cas9 worldwide. Profits made from this drug will be split for 60-40 in Vertex favor. So what are we talking about here? So first of all, I want to reiterate a couple of things. We already know that Vertex owns 60% of this program. We already know before they owned 60% that Vertex was going to spearhead the commercial side of things, just like every big pharma company wants to do in this CRISPR landscape. You don't want CRISPR Therapeutics, a small company like CRISPR Therapeutics, a company that's focused on one single program, that has no commercial experience, that has no marketing sales experience to start doing any of the latter. You want Vertex to spearhead all of that. Now, the profits are going to be split 60-40 because that was the agreement. It makes sense. We took a look at ARK Invest. I think ARK Invest, Ali Yerman said an FDA program typically takes about 10 years to get approved, and you pretty much spend about $1 to $2 billion. Like I said in the last video, it's probably more towards $2 billion that's spent to the program, and that is of course spent on R&D, spent on marketing, sales, administration, and so on. There's so many costs involved, right? And that makes sense that now as investors you want to sort of project how much you can, this company can make from this single program. Now I want to remind viewers, although CRISPR Therapeutics is only getting 40%, which is still a big amount, make no mistake, it's still one single program. The bet, I think, from investors is that there will be multiple programs to be approved from CRISPR Therapeutics, for example. Same thing for NTLA. They have NTLA 2001, 2002. You want to get those two programs approved. It's not about one program. Now, if you only look at it at one program, you look at these numbers, 1 billion until 2027. Peak sales is 2.2 billion in 2030. I mean, we could use Excel there and we can get really, really granular, but 40% of that, it's still good. I mean, I don't see, think about it. 1 billion, 40% is 400 million in revenue. And obviously that's not profit. So you got to cut that on margin. Margin's probably going to be what, like, well, yeah, I should probably study what's the typical margin. But let's just assume margin. Let's just be really generous and say it's 50%. Let's be really, really generous. Just throw a number there. So that means 400 million of revenue for CRISPR Therapeutics because of 40% out of a billion. That means they have $200 million in profit in 2027. It's not bad. It's not bad. Like, make no mistake. It's actually really good, but it's a profitable company, actually. Is it? Probably not, actually. Now that I think about it, probably not, because I think I think their operating expense is a little bit more than that, if I remember. We can probably check that if we really wanted to. But my point here is that investors, yes, these numbers are important. Yes, first of all, these are projections. Let's be honest, with inflation and everything, things are bound to increase. So don't take these numbers, as they are. Probably there's a fluctuation there. I can't see going it down $1 billion, but who am I to start, projecting specific numbers if Bloomberg consensus estimates were that? The point I'm making here is that the bet for investors is other programs. You want to make sure that there are more than one program. CRISPR Therapeutics has more than one program. It has the CAR-T program, which we actually talked about in yesterday's video. It has the diabetes program, which we also talked about in yesterday's video. And of course, in yesterday's video, we also talked about the heart disease program, which is, again, they're sort of a dark horse program. So the bet is to get the CAR-T space, approved, or the diabetes set approved. If either of them get approved, I can see this company making $1 billion plus in profits at some point this decade. In profits. That's even after splitting any sort of commercial deal with Vertex. Either of those programs. Diabetes, obviously, it's partnered with Viasat, which actually is owned now 100% by Vertex. So in a sense, they're still partners with Vertex. So if we focus on diabetes for a second, if the diabetes program gets approved sometime this decade, then that's a lot of money for Vertex. That's a lot of money for specifically CRISPR Therapeutics. I know a lot of investors in this space are more interested with the big pharma because of this thing highlighted here. Vertex is expected to report nearly $10 billion in sales of drugs for cystic fibrosis. The fact that Vertex is a well-seasoned company, oil company that has a lot of other programs in its pipeline, it's sort of risky to invest in a pure CRISPR company. I've always said that. I think if you're sort of risk averse and if you're interested in other healthcare side of things, if you're interested in other technologies, Vertex is an amazing company. It's an amazing company. But in this channel, we focus on CRISPR pure plays. We focus on CRISPR stories. And Vertex, although they're a huge player in the CRISPR landscape now, they're obviously not pure CRISPR play. I mean, like I mentioned earlier in this video, Vertex has a lot of programs, successful programs, tackling other diseases that are making great money. But again, they have that, operating expense head end that obviously has to cover all these other programs that are not CRISPR. As opposed to a company like CRISPR Therapeutics, which is pure CRISPR play. That's a pure play. That obviously has less operating income expenses. That obviously has less, debt. It obviously is more of a startup-like company. Obviously has more potential upend, but it is, of course, does come with a risk. And that's where you, as an investor, you have to make that decision. but nothing stops you to splitting that investment, right? Again, not financial advice, but you don't have to invest one or the other. You could do both, right? Who knows? Depends on your investment strategy, right? So I think investors ultimately, there's a play. I think now the question is not, can the FDA approve CRISPR? I think that has been debunked a couple of weeks ago. But I think now the question is, can the FDA approve multiple programs from the same company? And if it's not if that won't happen in the next 2-3 years, I think at least the question should be tackled with the question before that, or maybe next after that, is, can the FDA approve other companies' programs such as NTLA, such as Caribou that's entering in the CAR-T space, such as Beam, which obviously yet to report any data. This is the next question. There are a couple of questions, of course. Investors are looking from all cylinders at this point. And of course, it's for CRISPR to deliver, CRISPR as a technology as a whole, whether that's CRISPR-Cas9, in vivo, ex vivo, prime editors, base editors. At this point, CRISPR has to deliver on all cylinders for investors to be interested in this space long term, right? And when I say long term, I mean like 2030, 2035. I'm definitely interested. I see the play. I think CRISPR as a technology is here to stay. I think these numbers, people are going to be surprised when CRISPR Therapeutics and Vertex start pumping these sales out. I think there's something to be said. I think Vertex is a well-seasoned company that can make this work. There's a reason why CRISPR gave up 60% of their program to a company like Vertex, other than, of course, the $1 billion that they got in 2020. I think it was 2022. I don't even remember when it was. But a lot to be looking for. So I'll end this video like this, guys. As always, for sure, do like this video, subscribe. It is the last video of the year. I want to wish everybody a happy new year. 2023 was an amazing year, an interesting year, maybe not so positive, but fluctuated year. 2024 would be even better. We'll see what happens in 2024. Exciting year, lots to happen. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, always subscribing. I really do appreciate it. The support is appreciated. Like I said, do like this video. It helps these videos to come on other people's YouTube homepages. Please do like this video. It really does help. Thank you so much for the support, everybody. I will see you guys in 2024. Let's hope for an amazing year. Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you.